There's a plant in American backyards right now that can blind you with a single touch of sunlight. Another one was planted by well-meaning grandmothers, and it's been quietly poisoning the soil for 100 years. These aren't exotic jungle specimens, they're sold at your local garden center. And chances are, at least one of them is growing in your neighborhood right now. The green-fenced prison. The promise of an instant privacy screen is one of the modern gardener's greatest temptations. We crave a wall to block out the world, and we want it planted, grown, and finished by next Tuesday. And so, we plant bamboo. At first, it looks like a dream. It's elegant, it's tropical, and it grows impossibly fast, delivering that lush, green wall in a single season. But this solution is born of pure impatience. There was a time when a backyard boundary was made of something slow and steady, a cedar hedge perhaps, or a row of lilacs, planted with the quiet knowledge that true privacy, like all true growth, takes years. We have forgotten this. We invited the bamboo in, never understanding its nature. The nightmare begins silently, underground. Bamboo spreads through rhizomes, tough, woody runners that have zero respect for fences, property lines, or even concrete barriers. They creep, then they conquer. Within a few years, what started as a simple screen has become a dense, aggressive forest. It chokes out your lawn. It invades your neighbor's yard. You can chop it, burn it, or hire contractors, but a single piece of root left behind is enough to regrow the entire stand. That instant solution becomes a green-fenced prison of your own making, and you will spend the rest of your gardening life wishing you had simply learned to wait. But while some invaders march across your lawn like an army, others are invited right through the front door, smelling like summer hospitality. The hospitable tyrant. It often starts so innocently. You buy a single, fragrant pot from the market, promising fresh tea or muddled cocktails. It smells like summer hospitality, like a generous garden. And, for a time, it delivers. You crush a leaf between your fingers, and that sharp, clean scent fills the air. It's useful, it's aromatic, and it seems to want to be helpful, growing eagerly, with almost no care. But this plant's generosity is a weapon. This is the truth we've forgotten. Mint does not play nice with others. It is a hospitable tyrant. Like the bamboo, it spreads with a secret, silent aggression, sending out tough, wiry runners underground where you cannot see them. Before you know it, the mint has popped up 3 feet away, then 10 feet, until it's breaching the cracks in your walkway and swallowing your flower beds. It ruthlessly chokes out the slower, more polite herbs. The thyme, the sage, the oregano. They don't stand a chance against this aromatic invader. You are left with a garden that smells incredible, but is utterly conquered. Old-school gardeners knew the golden rule. Our grandmothers understood this plant's nature. They knew you must never let this plant into the open soil. It was wisdom passed down. They'd sink an old bucket or a pot into the ground, a barrier to keep its ambition in check. They respected its power. Today, we've forgotten that respect. We wanted the fragrance without the foresight. And now we spend our summers pulling at an enemy that always comes back. It's a conquest of smell and soil. But other plants conquer with a different weapon. Our own romantic dreams of a storybook cottage. The romantic ruin. There's a certain dream we've inherited. It's the image of an old stone cottage, its walls softened by a romantic cloak of green. We see English ivy, and we think of permanence, of history, of a secret garden waiting to be discovered. We want that look. We want that charm. So we plant it, believing this fast-growing vine will grant our new walls a storybook patina. But we are chasing a superficial aesthetic. We want the look of age without the patience of earning it. What we've forgotten to look for is the slow, quiet destruction happening just beneath those glossy green leaves. English ivy is not a gentle guest. Its tiny, clinging rootlets dig into surfaces with a relentless, grasping strength. They work their way into mortar, pry apart wooden siding, and exploit every tiny crack in the foundation. It is not uncommon for this charming vine to pull down entire fences or cause thousands in home repairs. On a tree, it is a death sentence. The ivy wraps the trunk, climbs into the canopy, and methodically smothers the branches, blocking out all the light. It strangles the very thing it was meant to adorn. Old-timers knew you respected this plant, and you kept it far from your house. They understood that true, lasting beauty never destroys its foundation. We just fell in love with a picture. And that same mistake, falling for a beautiful image, is what draws us to the fairy tale blossoms that can pull your entire porch to the ground. The Fairy Tale Strangler. In spring, there is almost nothing as breathtaking. You see those long, purple cascades of wisteria dripping from a pergola or framing a porch. It looks like a living fairy tale, a fantasy of perfumed color brought to life in the backyard. This is pure visual temptation, and it's why so many of us plant one, dreaming of that perfect shaded arbor. But here is the truth the garden catalog never mentions. The fairy tale has teeth. We see the delicate flowers, but we forget to look at the vine. Those soft-looking blooms are attached to a trunk of pure, crushing strength. Wisteria is not gentle. It is ruthless. Its woody vines twist and wrap with the power of a python. And they don't just climb on a structure. They strangle it. The sheer weight of a mature plant can splinter a 2x4 and pull a porch railing clean off the house. It will girdle a young, healthy tree, leaving a dead husk inside its embrace. Old-timers understood this plant. They knew that beauty, this powerful, demanded respect. It demanded constant, vigilant pruning, a battle fought every single season with heavy shears to keep its ambition in check. They knew you had to manage the fairy tale, or it would consume your home. But we've forgotten the work. We just wanted the picture. And now we are left trying to tame a monster. But at least with wisteria, the fight is with the vine, you see. The next plant wages a different war, one that hides in the soil for a decade. The perennial pest. You've seen them in old-fashioned illustrations, or maybe in your grandmother's memory garden. Cheerful, trumpet-shaped flowers of purple and blue that greet the morning sun. They seem harmless, even charming. They promise to cover an ugly fence, and they promise to do it fast. This is the allure of the morning glory. It is the fast-growing solution for a bare trellis or a chain-link fence, and for one summer, it works beautifully. The vines twist and climb, and by July, you have a living wall of color. But you have also made a terrible mistake. You've been seduced by a single season of beauty, never asking about the price. The problem isn't the vine you see this year. It is the seeds you don't see. A single plant can produce thousands of tiny, resilient seeds. They drop into the soil, and they wait. They can remain viable for years, sometimes up to a decade. This is the part we've forgotten. An old-school gardener understood a plant's full life cycle. They knew that prolific was just a polite word for invasive. They knew this plant was tangled trouble. These vines don't just climb, they smother. They will crawl over your tomatoes, choke your beanstalks, and reduce your harvest, all while dropping more seeds for next spring. You can pull the parent vine, but you will be fighting its children and its children's children for the next 10 years. You didn't just plant a flower. You planted a perennial pest. These are the invaders, the ones that march across property lines and refuse to die. So we've seen the plants that will conquer your yard, the invaders that march across property lines. But the next group is more subtle. These are the liars. The ones that look perfect, right up until the moment they shatter. The fragile facade. It's the sound of a crack, then a shatter, in the middle of the first big ice storm. You look outside, and that perfect tree you planted is now a monument of splinters across your driveway. This is the legacy of the Bradford pear. It was hailed as the perfect invention for the new American suburb. Developers and homeowners alike fell in love. It grew fast. It had a perfectly uniform lollipop shape, and in spring, it exploded in a cloud of white blossoms. This was the ultimate low-maintenance tree for a low-maintenance life, promising shade in 5 years, not 50. It was clean, neat, and predictable. But the perfection was a lie. The Bradford pear was bred for looks and speed, not for strength. Its branches all grow upward at a severe, narrow angle from the trunk, creating a fatally weak structure. The wood itself is brittle. Minastrack. Rememberson, the very design is flawed. And so, the first serious ice storm, or a heavy wind, reveals the truth. The tree doesn't just lose a branch, it shatters. It splits clean in half, falling across driveways and cars, a monument to our own impatience. Old-school gardeners knew a tree was an investment for generations. They planted oaks or maples. They knew these trees were slow, but they also knew they were strong. They planted for their grandchildren. We just planted for the curb appeal. And now, all across the suburbs, you see those splintered trunks, the wreckage of a perfect idea. That tree was a lie of structure. But some modern plants are a lie of purpose, bought for a simple splash of color while hiding a dangerous secret. The Crimson Menace. You see it in every big box store. A neat, thorny shrub with deep, unnatural-looking red leaves. It's sold under the promise of low maintenance and a pop of color for your foundation. It's an easy choice. It's a modern staple. But this plant is a perfect example of how far we've strayed from the old wisdom. A generation ago, gardens were practical. Plants were prized for what they did. They offered food, or medicine, or a fragrance that repelled pests from the vegetables. They had a purpose. This plant, this Japanese barberry, has none. It is bought purely for its artificial-looking color, a splash of crimson in a sea of suburban green. But that pop of color comes with a hidden cost, one we're only just now realizing. It's not just that the plant is invasive, though it is. It leaps the garden fence and marches into the woodlands, choking out the native ferns and wildflowers that actually belong there. The real menace is what it shelters. The dense, thorny, humid architecture of the barberry bush creates a perfect paradise for ticks. Studies have shown that a patch of this invasive shrub can host 10 times more disease-carrying ticks than the native forest floor. We planted it just to look pretty. And in doing so, we made our own backyards and the wild lands around us fundamentally less safe. An old-school gardener would have been baffled. Why would you ever plant a thorny, useless shrub that harbors a genuine danger? This crimson menace is what we get when we value color over common sense. But sometimes, the problem isn't that the plant is bad. It's that we've lost the common sense our ancestors had to respect its power. The Silent King. There was a time when the black walnut was held in high regard. It was a king in the landscape, majestic and towering, offering deep, cool shade, valuable wood, and a yearly harvest of rich, edible nuts. But today, if you ask many gardeners, they will call it a silent killer. This is the great misunderstanding. This isn't a bad plant. It is a plant we have simply forgotten how to live with. We have lost the wisdom our ancestors carried in their bones. They knew about juglone. This is the natural chemical the walnut releases from its roots, its leaves, and the hulls of its fruit. It is the tree's own defense, a silent, invisible toxin that poisons the soil for many other plants, especially tomatoes, peppers, and potatoes. An old-school gardener would have never made this mistake. They knew, as well as they knew the sun, that you did not plant your precious vegetable patch in the shadow of this king. They respected its domain. They gave it the space it silently demanded. We are the ones who forgot. We planted our tender annuals right at its feet. And when they withered and died, we blamed the tree for a crime committed by our own ignorance. The tree hasn't changed. We just stopped listening. We blame the tree for our own ignorance. And that same kind of well-intentioned ignorance is what leads us to plant helpers in the garden that don't actually help at all. The sweet deception. We've all heard the modern call to plant for the pollinators. It's a noble, well-intentioned idea. And so, we head to the nursery and buy the plant that literally has butterfly in its name. The butterfly bush, with its long, honey-scented spikes, seems like the perfect answer. And at first, the promise holds. The butterflies do come. You can watch monarchs and swallowtails sipping nectar from those purple blooms, and you feel like you've done something good. You feel like you're helping. But this is a sweet deception. You're offering a party, but you've forgotten to stock the nursery. The ecological wisdom we've lost is that adult butterflies are only half the story. That bush is junk food. It offers a quick sip of nectar, but it is not a host plant. The caterpillars, the next generation, cannot eat its leaves. And so, as this invasive shrub spreads, it pushes out the native plants that actually matter. The milkweed, the asters, the turtlehead. Those are the plants that truly support the full life cycle. Old school nature didn't need a single butterfly bush because the entire landscape was a functioning habitat. We bought a plant that makes us feel good, but we've displaced the plants that do good. We were fooled by a sweet-smelling lie. But what about the plant that promises to solve our most impossible problem, and in doing so, becomes the impossible problem? The invincible carpet. We all have that one impossible spot in the garden. That dry, shady patch under the old maple trees where the grass gives up and nothing seems to get a foothold. In our modern search for an easy fix, we often reach for this one. It's called goutweed, or sometimes bishop's weed, and it promises a lush, variegated carpet of green and white with almost zero effort. It is the ultimate low-maintenance dream, a ground cover that seems to thrive on pure neglect. We plant just a few small pots, and by the next year, the bare earth is gone. We think we've solved the problem, but the promise was a lie. This plant's vigor is just a polite word for conquest. The carpet never stops. Its brittle, white roots spread in a dense underground mat, an invincible web that chokes out everything in its path. It doesn't just cover the ground, it claims it. It will smother your hostas. It will overwhelm your ferns. It will crawl under your sidewalk. Old school gardeners knew there was no easy way out for a tough spot. That was the wisdom. You either respected the shade and planted what belonged there, the native ferns, the wild ginger, or you put down a thick layer of pine straw and let it be. You did not, under any circumstances, invite a living plague just to cover a little bare soil. You didn't solve a problem by unleashing an invasion. It's an ugly solution that creates an uglier problem. But at least it doesn't fight back. Not with a blade. Anyway, the plumed razor. Every gardener who has one knows the feeling. That sharp, paper-cut-like slice on your arm as you try to weed near its base. This is a plant that demands blood. We bought it for those soft, feathery plumes, those graceful, waving statements. They seem to add a touch of the wild coast or the windswept prairie to a neat suburban lot. It is a dramatic, architectural statement. This is a classic mistake. The triumph of image over wisdom. We have forgotten that plants have a nature, not just an appearance. We see the soft plume, but we ignore the blade. Those plumes might look soft from 20 feet away, but the plant itself is a fortress. The long, arching leaves are not gentle. They are lined with tiny, serrated edges, sharp as a paper cut, but far deeper. This is a plant that fights back. It will slice your arms when you try to weed near it or trim back its growth. And the decline isn't just about the danger, it's about the decay. Over time, the center of the massive clump dies out. It stops producing plumes and becomes a dense, brown, impenetrable thatch. It is ugly, it is a fire hazard, and it becomes a perfect, sheltered home for rodents and snakes. An old-school gardener would be baffled by this choice. They knew real prairie grasses, the ones that belonged, were soft. They built the soil. They fed the birds. This is just a plumed razor. It is an ornament that demands blood, a hollow fortress that quickly becomes a blight on the very landscape it was meant to beautify. These are the deceptions, the plants that cost us time and fool us into harming our own ecosystem. These deceptions cost us time, and they fool us into harming our own ecosystem. But the final set of plants on our list, they move from deception to active danger. These are the ones that can and will fight back. The poisonous prize. The temptation for the exotic is strong in any gardener. We want the showstopper, the plant that makes the neighbors stop and ask, "What is that?" And this one is the ultimate prize. The castor bean plant can grow 10 feet tall in a single season. Its enormous star-shaped leaves are a deep, glossy red, giving the backyard a dramatic, almost tropical look. It's pure visual bragging rights. It's a centerpiece, and it's incredibly easy to grow. But this is a plant that reveals how much we have forgotten. A generation or two ago, this prize would have been viewed with extreme caution, if not outright fear. Our grandparents, our great-grandparents, knew the plants. They understood that beautiful did not always mean safe. They taught their children which berries were food and which were poison. It was a fundamental lesson of living with the land. We, in our rush for an exotic look, have forgotten to even ask the question. The danger is not in the leaves, it is in the seeds. Those glossy, mottled beans. They look like beautiful, polished jewels. But they contain ricin, one of the most lethal natural toxins known to science. A single ingested bean can be fatal to a child. It can kill a pet. There is no antidote. This showstopper is a deadly trap hidden in plain sight. It's a poisonous prize that has no place in a garden where children play or pets roam. We just wanted the tropical look. We forgot the most basic wisdom of all, to know what we are planting. That prize can kill if it's eaten. But the next plant on our list doesn't even need to be touched. It uses the sun itself as a weapon. The sun's revenge. This one isn't just a plant. It's a monument. It towers up to 14 feet high, with flower clusters that can measure 2 feet across, looking like something from a lost, prehistoric world. It is the allure of the monumental. It is the desire to own something that looks truly, shockingly impressive. We see it, and we want it for the sheer wow factor, never asking why it is so imposing. But this isn't a passive ornament. This is an invader, and it has a defense mechanism that we, in our modern disconnection, have completely forgotten to fear. The lost wisdom here isn't just about gardening. It's about survival. It's the knowledge that some things are not meant to be touched. The danger is in its sap, a clear, watery liquid that, on its own, seems harmless. But when that sap from the giant hogweed touches your skin and is then exposed to sunlight, a chemical reaction is triggered. This is the sun's revenge. The result is horrifying. We are not talking about a mild rash. We are talking about severe, weeping blisters, burns that rival a chemical fire, and dark scars that can last for years. If the sap splashes near the eyes, it can cause temporary or even permanent blindness. This isn't just an invasive plant. It is a genuine public health hazard. It is nature's most brutal consequence for planting what we shouldn't. A prehistoric giant that carries a terrible burning price for our ignorance. But while some dangers are giant, imported monuments, others are native, creeping silently in the fence line, carrying a warning we've simply forgotten to hear. The forgotten warning. Not every backyard threat is an exotic import from a faraway land. Some of the most potent dangers are native. They have always been here, and they carry an ancient warning that we have, in our modern comfort, conveniently forgotten. We've become so focused on the new, we've lost the wisdom to see what's creeping in from the fence line. There was a time when this was one of the first lessons a child would learn, long before they could read a book. It was a piece of folk wisdom, a rhyming rule passed down for pure survival. Leaves of 3, let it be. This wasn't just a quaint saying. It was a law of the land. Our ancestors knew this plant by heart. They knew its 3 glossy leaves. They recognized the hairy, rope-like vines that climbed the oaks. They respected its territory, and they taught their children a healthy, vital fear. But we have become disconnected. We have become disconnected. End quote. We've built our homes on the edge of the woods, but have forgotten how to read the language of those woods. We can't spot our oldest, most dangerous neighbor. Poison ivy looks deceptively harmless, but it carries a potent, invisible weapon, an oil called urushiol. This isn't a poison you have to eat. It's a defense that sticks to everything. It clings to your garden gloves, your tools, your shoelaces, even your pet's fur. It waits, and hours later, it delivers its reminder in the form of painful, weeping, blistering rashes that can last for weeks. It is the original, native warning, patiently waiting for us to forget the simplest, most important rule. That plant is an honest danger. The final plant on our list, however, is the greatest liar of all, an imposter that hides its true nature behind a hopeful, poetic name. The imposter's shadow. It was given a hopeful, almost poetic name, the Tree of Heaven. In a time of rapid urban expansion, it was celebrated as a miracle. Here was a tree that could grow anywhere, even in the toxic soil and cracked pavement of a city lot. A tree that seemed to thrive on pure neglect. It was the ultimate quick fix, the fastest way to bring a patch of green to a barren landscape. It required no care, no watering, no thought. It was the perfect solution for a generation that wanted nature, but didn't want the work that nature demands. But the promise was a lie. This was not a tree. It was a plague. The Tree of Heaven, as it turns out, creates its own hell. It poisons the soil around it, releasing chemicals that kill off every native seedling, creating a sterile monoculture. It's like the black walnut, but entirely without the majesty or the use. Its aggressive roots are powerful enough to crack building foundations and shatter sewer lines. And if you dare to cut it down, it doesn't die. The roots just send up dozens of new, angry shoots, a thicket that is even harder to remove. This is the imposter's shadow. It is the perfect, enduring lesson for what we get when we look for a heavenly solution, wanting all the reward without any of the wisdom. We've forgotten that in a garden, as in life, nothing good ever comes that easy. From the instant fence to the perfect tree. The mistake, in the end, we fell for the picture on the tag instead of respecting the nature of the plant. The wisdom our ancestors had wasn't about secret tricks. It was about patience. It was about knowing the land, respecting its power, and understanding that a true, lasting garden isn't a solution you can buy in a pot. It's a partnership, built over seasons. And perhaps that is the one piece of wisdom most worth replanting. If this changed the way you look at your own backyard, hit that like button. It helps more people avoid these mistakes. And if you want more forgotten wisdom that actually matters, subscribe, because the next video might just save you from planting your own green-fenced prison.